Welcome to the Money Pig podcast, presented by Goodwin Investment Advisory, where our mission is to lead you to financial pig, peace, independence, and generosity. I'm your host, Tim Goodwin. All right, welcome back to the Money Pig podcast. We're super excited today to have none other than Elmer Fudd, Justin Pitcock back in action with us. Good to see you, Justin. How you doing?
Man, doing great.
Doing great. Yeah. So I need to make sure that everybody understands these nicknames, like calling you Elmer Fudd. We've explained it before, but if this is their first podcast, because they're like, man, the tax podcast must be the best one to start with. Why do we call you Elmer Fudd?
I love to hunt.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And fish.
Yep.
Just try to get that wascally wabbit.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about 10 pro tax tips for early retirees. So this is actually a cool little checklist that we have. We'll be going over this and we'll share how to get it as well. Before we do, Justin, share something with the audience that they may not know about you.
Oh man, you asked that last time.
Yeah.
So I got to come up with something new.
Something new. Keep it fresh. Okay.
Gosh.
Keep it real.
All right. I'm just drawing a blank right now, but I mean, I don't know. Just, married, got 2 boys and, just love the outdoors. So I don't know that that's necessarily new, but.
So, you guys were out of town last week. You went up to your cabin in the wood, which is affectionately called Boar's Nest.
The Boar's Nest.
And there was something involved with water, I heard that happened. Yeah. So do you want to share that?
It was winter break. And, so my oldest is out of school and, of course he wants to do anything that's like macho. And so he's like, Dad, let's get in the river. Let's cold plunge.
Oh,
so we built a fire on the Jacks River up in the Cohutta Wilderness. And we cold plunged. I had a big fire, so it was, had the ability to warm up.
Cold plunge. Like, how long was he in that water?
Well, he's 6. Not long.
Okay.
Totally submerged.
Yep. Totally.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's super impressive. That's super macho. You tell him.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Tim said, you are a macho man.
And, gosh, that cold water leaves you feeling like energized. You're ready to go.
Totally
afterwards.
does. Yeah. It's like Red Bull and espresso had a baby.
And it happens in like 30 seconds. Yep. Or
so
2
awesome.
seconds.
So that's great. I'm glad that you guys are out there outside making it happen. So I did want to ask you, or I wanted to share with you about, my childhood. So like you're Rowan's dad, you're taking him cold plunging. But in my childhood, my dad used to roll me down the hill in tires.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. Those were the good years.
So that's what happened.
The Goodyear tires. Angela's like, there it is. Just making that up. Shout out, Dad. Guys, full disclosure, my dad did not roll me down in tires, but that's my dad joke to get us started. So, all right. So let's come on back because I know everybody was just super excited to hear us talk about our pro tax planning tips. And the reason why do we care? Why do we take the effort to understand this and have a podcast about it?
Man, taxes are really important. It's not how much you have, but it's how much you're left with. And retirement, it's, people have these, save up a big nest egg, but if a third of it goes to the government, then what are you really left with, right? It's not as big as you thought it was.
Dang.
So
we need to take those quotes right there, Angela, snapshot that stuff on X and social media. Those are some really good quotes. It's not what you have, it's what you're left with. And the government's going to take our third if you're not careful.
So how do we keep as much of what you've got as possible? And so that's a good planning opportunity. And if we start planning early enough in life, then we can really set, yourself up for success where you get to keep close to 100% that the government doesn't get a whole lot. So that's the goal. That's the purpose.
I think I've found, I don't know if you found this advising clients over the years, that there's a little more of a focus of when you're earning and you're working, the hustle and the income and the stashing it away. When you get close to retirement or you're early in retirement, all of a sudden this is big shift from not can I make more income, not can I save more, but how do I pay less taxes? Right. How do I know there's strategies out there. A lot of times too, I think clients feel like there's all these secrets and there's all these hidden things and all these loopholes. It's not so much that, it's just being aware of the different strategies and the timing that comes into play.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I will share with the audience, there's a really cool blog that we have out. It's called 10 Pro Tax Planning Tips for Early Retirees. So go to goodwininvestment.com. If you click on the tax planning services page, you'll see that blog. And then you can download this checklist for free. You don't even have to give us your information. You can be completely incognito. So we're going to break this up into 2 different episodes. We're going to go over the first 5, and then we'll bring you back and do the second 5. You might even be wearing the same shirt for that second set. It'd be amazing.
Weird if that happens.
It's totally weird if you wore the same shirt for episode 2. Okay, so let's dive in here. Why is it important to understand how your financial resources are taxed?
So there's 3 different tax types.
Yep.
So there's tax deferred, taxable, and tax free.
Tax free is my favorite, Justin.
Oh yeah, my favorite too. But we can actually get the first 2 categories I mentioned tax free as well if we plan things properly. And so let me just give some examples of like what each category is. So, tax deferred would be like your pre-tax 401k or an IRA. Your taxable would be like that non-retirement account, the brokerage account. And then of course, tax-free would be your Roth IRA or Roth 401k or HSA. So, you've got different accounts that could fall into those categories. And if we build wealth in all 3 categories, you're able to pull some from each in the right proportion so that each bucket, well, obviously your tax-free is not taxed, but we can get some tax-deferred tax-free. We can get some taxable tax-free, like realize some cap gains tax-free.
So that is a quick win for the audience right there. If we lose you after this first point of 10, this is a really, really great nugget of wisdom to take from advisors that have been doing this for decades, from wealthy individuals, is to be very intentional about understanding where your money falls within those 3 tax types.
That's right.
And if you go and look at it and you're like, wow, I have everything in 1 tax type or everything across 2 tax types, you might want to consider having all 3. I've seen that clients have more options, and I think you're going to be unpacking that more strategies when you have money in all 3 types. But certainly, if you just had one, you'd want the tax-free one, like the Roth that we were talking about. And ultimately, that's the goal to get them there. But if you look back and you're like, I have all a tax-deferred 401k, and then maybe I inherited some money, or maybe I saved in a brokerage account outside of that, and you have nothing Roth tax-free, that's something to really start.
We might, look at Roth conversions.
Absolutely, because you could be maxed out on the income to contribute to that if you don't have it in your 401k. All right, so let's switch gears here and keep moving. So point 2 on our list of 10 is to take advantage of lower tax brackets. So this is going to be maybe not something you'd be comfortable doing in between jobs because you have a lower tax bracket, but okay, so you're going to unpack that. But also, like, if you just retired, there could be this window. So unpack that for the audience.
We get to work with a lot of folks that can retire early. So earlier than like the standard 65 that I think most people think of as, the normal retirement age. But when you're in those kind of we'll call it pre-Social Security years, you've got a lower income, and that's an opportunity for Roth conversions. It's also an opportunity to possibly realize capital gains and pay 0. So
definitely don't want to let those years skip past you, and you could have snuck some in there for free.
Yeah. So this year, you can, as long as your taxable income falls below basically $97,000, any cap gains that are a portion of that are tax, or long-term cap gains are taxed at 0. And that's for married filing joint.
Okay. And that's 2025, everybody.
That's right.
So,
so that's just a good example of how you can realize some income and pay 0 on it. So I've got a client that I'm helping right now. He's kind of in career 2.0. He's trying to start his own business. He retired out of corporate America. And so we're trying to fund him starting this new business right now. So we just sold a lot of assets in his brokerage account, realized a bunch of cap gains. He's probably not going to pay a dime in taxes on that.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah, you definitely want to be aware of those. This is also like, we're just going to kind of toot our own horn here real quick, but I think this is why it's super helpful to not, like, I get the DIYers. Like, I get the audience. If you're the do-it-yourselfer, you're astute, you're a savvy investor, but it's a lot to have on yourself to make sure you're in the right investments. You're doing all the right things with taxes, all the right things with estate planning versus having a trusted, experienced, licensed financial advisor who can remind you about these things. Mr. John Smith, did you realize that your income's lower this year? And if we realize some of these gains over here, you'd pay nothing. Like, I had to admit, I try to keep a lot of things in my mind, but I would forget that and I could miss that, right?
That's what we get paid for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And clients will come in a lot. We'll be doing their planning and we'll be talking about the 3 buckets, going back to the first question, and they don't have any Roth assets.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, does your 401k let you contribute to a Roth side?
Right.
And they're like, oh, maybe I heard about it or I don't know. And they check and now it's more common, right?
Oh, yeah.
Are you seeing it's more common?
It's, well, pretty soon it's going to be required in all 401k
there you
plans
go.
because the catch-up contribution, not to get too far in the weeds here, but
you love getting in the weeds, so Justin.
So,
it's been waiting for those weeds.
So for folks that are contributing and participants in 401k plans, there's a catch-up contribution if you're age 50 or older, and that soon that catch-up contribution is going to be required to be Roth.
Interesting.
So all 401k plans are going to have to offer Roth.
Let's go
soon. So
yep. So there it is. If this podcast is your financial advisor, this is your financial advisor telling you, maybe check on your sources and consider the Roth.
So consider the Roth. I mean, we're going to be looking at opportunities to convert pre-tax to Roth as well. So we kind of covered realizing cap gains when you can at the 0% rate. But if we can convert pre-tax assets to Roth and pay very little, for example, right now, the current tax brackets go, there's a 12% bracket, then it jumps up to the 20%, or 22% bracket. So there's a big gap right there. So gosh, let's max out that 12% range. Yeah. And, that's a bargain because later on, I mean, we would, of course, do the analysis of this, but in retirement, you might be in a higher rate. So,
yeah. And I would say that it's not that every client ends up doing Roth conversions, but we feel like every client needs to consider it.
Right.
You've got to consider it. Everybody has got to consider, should I do Roth conversions? Yep. When would they make the most sense?
And we'll get to that here in a moment when it makes sense, but it's not, it's not beneficial for everybody. And unfortunately, I think, folks who are listening to other podcasts on this topic, there's blanket advice out there, and some folks are just blasting like, you need to convert everything to Roth. Don't do that. You need to have somebody analyze your situation.
That's right.
Because it's not more often than not, it works. It's not advantageous, but we need to at least see if it is given your situation.
Absolutely. So let's bounce over to Social Security.
Okay.
So Social Security is obviously, everybody understands, is a big part of retirement planning. It's a substantial income source. But I think managing the timing of this not only plays into like, how do I maximize my income, but really plays into how you manage your taxes and your strategy around that. So what would your feedback be around considering Social Security timing as it relates to taxes?
There's kind of 2 considerations here. One is, if you start Social Security earlier, then those earlier years, you're not, assuming you're retired, you're not pulling as much out of your investments. So if you start it earlier, you're leaving more of your investments alone to grow and compound for more years. So you end up possibly with a higher net worth. Now, on the flip side, and later in retirement, like late 80s, 90s, we see where if you had delayed Social Security, you would have a higher Social Security benefit. So you're needing to supplement that with less from your investment portfolio. So there's this influx of where initially it would be beneficial to start Social Security early, but in later years, it's not. And we have to look at the compounding math, and we have planning software that can help with that and illustrate for us in your situation, does that early on advantage of starting early, taking less out of your portfolio, outweigh the later on cost of having a lower benefit when you're in your 80s and 90s compared to what your Social Security benefit would otherwise be, where you'll have to pull more out of your portfolio in the late 80s, 90s. So there is kind of an influx. And for some folks, it is clearly advantageous to start early. For some folks, it is more advantageous to start later. So that's another one of those that we have to look at your exact situation. And then, we don't know when it's our time to go, but that, family history, and you can kind of weigh in that for yourself. Like, gosh, where do I want my break even point to be? And so a lot of times we see that kind of mid 80s. But again, we need to look at your situation to give you an informed answer there. Would it be beneficial to start early versus late?
Yeah, and I was just going to say that, to wrap up what you were saying there, the two biggest factors are life expectancy.
Yep.
And it depends on what else you have.
Right. Exactly.
Because it impacts that.
Oh, yeah. So the second factor with Social Security timing has to do with the way Social Security is taxed. This is kind of the fun part where I get to nerd out a bit, but 85% of Social Security can be included in your taxable income. The other 15% is always tax-free. They're talking, our government's talking about changing the way it's taxed. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But currently, the way it is, up to 85% could be included in your taxable income. It depends on how much other income you have, and that's known as your provisional income. So if you have a lower provisional income, then less of your Social Security is included in your taxable income. So hopefully y'all are following me here. But one of the strategies is, can we have a lower provisional income relative to your Social Security income? So if you start early, your Social Security is smaller. If you delay, your Social Security benefit's larger, and it's a ratio. So it's relative to the size of your Social Security benefit. So by delaying, delaying Social Security, you could have a larger percentage of your Social Security tax-free. That's one consideration.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
15% of a larger number.
Well, so it's might not just be 15%, because it's this kind of ratio between your provisional income and your Social Security income. If your Social Security's income is larger, well, then your provisional income could be a little higher without impacting how much of your Social Security is taxed.
Okay.
So it's a very complex calculation on computing how much of your Social Security gets taxed. But that's one factor. And then this kind of ties back into the first couple of things that we talked about. Can we plan so that when you retire and start Social Security, that you've got things that are not included in your provisional income, such as distributions from a Roth IRA, or maybe it's the basis, the contributions, your basis in your taxable account.
Mm.
So, let's just, for example, let's say you're trying to pull $10,000 out of your brokerage account. It's half gain, half your investment, your original investment. So we call that your basis. That $5,000 of basis is, it's tax free. That was your cost. The $5,000 of growth. So pulling out of that taxable account has a low impact on your provisional income. Obviously, pulling out of a tax deferred account, all of that money is going to increase your provisional income. So we want to strategize on, building wealth in these three different buckets so that we can have a optimized distribution strategy to get as much of your Social Security tax-free as possible.
Yep. That's awesome. So to wrap that up, it's not just about, like what I was saying before, about maximizing the income streams for in retirement, but it's about strategizing which ones you're pulling and when, so that your overall tax picture is lowest. And we've seen without doing Roth conversions or considering these different sources that clients could end up in their highest income tax years of their life in retirement, right?
There's
later
RMDs,
in their 70s, because next question, required minimum distribution. So what's a way that being cognizant of these tax strategies that are out there will help us reduce our RMDs and hopefully not end up in the highest tax bracket of our life in our 70s?
So, early on, it's okay making that decision pre-tax, or that you're saving pre-tax or in the Roth. So obviously saving Roth would be money there's no required minimum distribution on a Roth account. So that would help. If you get to retire early, maybe Roth conversions in those low income years. And then, if you're already at RMD age, well, our kind of last option would be if you're charitably inclined to donate money straight from your IRA. So that's called a qualified charitable distribution, QCD. And so we help clients who do want to support their church or any other charity. They can send money directly from the IRA to that church or charity, and it's excluded from their income. It's not a charitable deduction. It's different.
Right.
It's satisfying a portion of their RMD, and it's excluded from their income. So when they go to do their taxes, let's say that they took $10,000 for themselves, they gave $5,000 to church or charity. Well, that $5,000 wasn't even part of their taxable income that year, so it's just excluded.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I think when you first hear about RMDs, required minimum distributions, you're like, oh, cool. So I'm going to at least get this RMD from tax deferred IRAs. But what ends up happening once you get there is they're kind of annoying.
They can get big because it's a factor of your age and your account balance. So as your account grows, well, that's going to make your RMD bigger. But as you get older, because it's a factor of your age, your RMD is going to get bigger. And so the older you get, that's a larger and larger percentage of your pre-tax account that has to come out every year.
Yeah. And that's a lot that we help with our clients is make sure they take those RMDs, because if you don't take them, it's a 50% tax.
Ooh,
right?
Yep. On the missed RMD.
On the missed, yep. On what part of the RMD you didn't take. Maybe you didn't take it all. And again, like you were saying, hopefully you've been working with a financial advisor in advance and doing things to strategically reduce those. So, last question here on the one of two episodes on these 10 tax tips. So the fifth one here is avoid early withdrawal penalties. So why is that a pro tax planning tip?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, everybody wants to retire early, right? Or at least maybe from that original 8 to 5 day job. Maybe they're going to something more meaningful and, it's passion driven, but an IRA, you can't withdraw from under the standard rule until you're 59 and a half. Now, there's a few exceptions to that rule. We help folks kind of work around that, but your last employer's 401k, you can start withdrawing from that at age 55.
If you left it there.
If you left it there, right? So that's something that if you're considering rolling over a 401k to an IRA, you need to know about this, and we need to talk about it. Are you in a situation where you might need to use that account? And actually, we would not want to roll that over to an IRA in that case. So
great. Yep. That's great. Well, thanks for joining. If you are listening and you want to get the other 5 pro tax tips, you can, again, like I mentioned, go to our website, goodwininvestment.com. You can go to the tax planning website. You can click on the blog and download those. Or you can wait for the next episode to come out where we go over the next set of 5. But in true form, as we sign off on the episodes, I always love sharing a little bit of what we're grateful for. And one of the things that I'm grateful for, we had Kobe on here earlier. We were talking about him being into fitness and exercise science. Your undergrad was exercise science as well. Yep. But I was out of town for a little bit. When you travel, I find it's a little bit harder to like have my regular fitness exercise routine. But man, getting back home and getting back into the regular fitness, it just always makes me like, I'm grateful that I am healthy enough to exercise, and that exercising itself it just not only makes me feel good, but I'm like, I accomplished something today, right? I got the exercise done.
There's a saying, health is wealth.
Health is wealth. There it is. Yep. There it is. So, that's what I'm grateful for today. What about you, Justin?
Gosh. So I said it Monday, to the team, but, so last week was winter break, and I know a lot of other advisors, they don't have a great team, but we do here. And so I could take the week off and spend that time with my boys. And I know that all of our clients are being taken care of. And so I'm just super grateful for the team that we have and the ability to do that. So,
awesome. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, we do. We do have an amazing team here. I can certainly echo that. So, also wanted to sign off and say thank you to our producer, Angela, and our content creator, Angela, who's doing it all. Tara, who wrote the stuff. Angela made it super pretty and got up on the website for you guys to take advantage of. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Money Pig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To stay updated on new episodes, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you found value in today's discussion, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about the topics we covered, feel free to visit us at goodwininvestment.com and reach out. This episode is produced by evance.net. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice, a solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles, nor as a basis for making any financial decisions. Goodwin Investment Advisory is a registered investment advisor with the SEC, CRD number 131193. Please note that the host and or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investments mentioned in this podcast. Investments carry risk and are not guaranteed unless stated otherwise. We strongly recommend consulting with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategies discussed in this episode. Lastly, past performance is not indicative of future results.